Hi, and welcome to Ripple's Derril Water webinar. So the share offer for Derril Water Solar Park, it will be the UK's first ever shared solar park in the UK. And the share offer is currently open. We're closing it at 5 p.m. next Monday. That's Monday the 22nd of May. So we're really pleased that you could join us here today. So what's going to happen is I can just give you a quick overview of Derril, and then we can I can then answer any questions that you've got. I should point out before we start that the share offer document is on our website, and we really recommend that everyone reads that in full before they buy any shares in Derril. So you can just go onto our website, which is rippleenergy.com, and then you can find it there. So yeah, it contains all the information that you need to buy your shares, and then it includes all the risks, all the benefits, and everything that you could possibly need to know about Derril. So do please read that document in full. So Derril Water Solar Park is going to be an up to 42 megawatt solar park. It's based in Devon, just about sort of 8 miles east of the beautiful seaside town of Bude. It can generate, or it will be able to generate enough electricity to power nearly 14,000 homes. That's around 41,000 megawatt hours every single year. So it's a really decent sized project. As alongside the co-op that owns that will own this solar park, the co-op will make available up to £42,000 of community benefit fund. So this is money that the local community can use for whatever it thinks is appropriate, so whether that's fuel poverty or new playgrounds, whatever. So we want to work with the local community near the solar park to determine how best to spend that money, and that money will be made available every year for the solar park's 40-year operating life. That means that there can be real benefits locally because the project is being built in the local area. Alongside the community, or as well as the community benefit fund, there will also be loads of biodiversity measures. This will actually improve the biodiversity of the area. So at the moment, the area is, the land that the solar park will be built on is it's land that's used for cattle grazing. It can still be used for sheep grazing, even when the solar park's there. So it'll be sort of a dual use. But there'll be loads of other biodiversity measures, such as increased habitat. So that's a range of whether it's hedgehog hotels or bee environments, so that we want to really increase the biodiversity of the site. And there'll also be new grasslands built, sort of planted as well. So overall, we expect there will be a net increase in the biodiversity of the land that the solar park's built on. And I should point out that the share offer closes 5 p.m. next Monday. So if you do want to become an owner of Derril Water, you do need to get a wriggle on and do it as soon as possible. Now, in terms of how Derril works, so what happens is you own a little bit of the solar park via a cooperative, alongside thousands of others who are doing just the same. And then you get the electricity that your share generates every month, and then as a result, you get savings on your electricity bill, and that's applied to your bill. It works with your co-op energy. Also, if you're already on an Octopus energy tariff, then you just get your savings applied to your Octopus bill, and it also works with Eon Next and Unify if you're a business customer as well. So just a really easy way to make a massive climate impact. The solar park will be operating for 40 years. There are very few things that you can do in one foul swoop that has such a lasting impact. So it's a really great way to reduce your carbon footprint, not just this year or next year, but for the next 40 years. That's well beyond 2050, when the UK needs to reach its net zero targets. So that's Derril. It's been developed by a company called RES. It's already got planning permission, so it's ready to build, and we're expecting, once the share offer closes, we'll then start construction later on in the year, and we expect it to start generating electricity late summer next year. And it's only when it starts generating electricity that you get your savings on your bill, because your savings are driven by your share of the generation. If there's no generation, obviously you can't get any savings. So that's why you only get your savings once the solar park starts generating. So if we move on to some questions that we've had quite a few questions come through. And so this is a question from Dan Stone on YouTube, and he asks, what price will we be paying per kilowatt hour? So now the way that Ripple works is that, like I said, you own a bit of the solar park, and then basically your supplier buys your electricity from your solar park instead of buying it from the market. So it pays around 2p per kilowatt hour. And then the savings that you get on your bill are the difference between that 2p a kilowatt hour and whatever the market price is. So it's not like there's a fixed price that you get, or even a fixed level of savings that you get. The level of savings is fixed on an annual basis, but it will change over the wind farm, over the solar park's 40-year life. So because the electricity price changes. So if the electricity price is high, the difference between the operating cost of the solar park and the market electricity price would be higher as well. So your savings would be higher. If the electricity price falls, which we expect it to do so because we've been in an energy price crisis over the last couple of years, then your savings would reduce as well. But basically the net effect is to stabilize your electricity bills for the long term, because when electricity prices are high, your bill would be high, but so would your solar park savings. And then if the electricity price comes down, so would your bill, but then so would your savings. So the overall effect is that it helps stabilize your bill for the long term. And you can see that in our first wind farm that's already operating. Members of that wind farm have saved around £300 off their bill in the first year of operation. And this year they're set to save more than £900. And that is, they're saving such a high amount because when we fixed the price the second year, the price was so much higher than when we fixed it initially. So that just shows that when the price is high, your savings really do increase. And then in lower price years, we would expect the savings to come down. Please do not expect to be getting the level of savings that the Grey Brother wind farm members are getting. They're getting that high level of saving because the electricity price has been so high recently. But even when we set the price last, or we fixed the price last, prices have come down quite considerably since then. So essentially there's not kind of a fixed pence per kilowatt hour that you get. The saving that you get per kilowatt hour of your generation from the solar park changes every year. We estimate it'll be just over about 6p per kilowatt hour over the solar park's 40-year lifetime. Higher in the early years because prices are so high. Prices are then expected to decline over time, in which case your savings would be expected to fall over time as well. And then another question, also from Dan of YouTube, has asked, can he assume that the solar park already has planning permission? Yes, you absolutely can. So the solar park is already fully consented. So it was approved by Torrance District Council, that's the local council, and then that decision was also upheld in the High Court. So it's ready to go. It's got all the permissions in place. And then there is another question also from Dan, and he says, does the solar farm have a confirmed grid connection agreement, and are the connection costs fixed? So yes, it has a signed grid connection agreement, and the expected date of that connection is summer 2024. The switchgear is one of the bits of the grid equipment that has the longest lead times. Now that equipment has already been ordered. So that means that the order is already in place. So yeah, it's important to get these things ordered so that we can anticipate when the project can then get connected. So it's really important that we have ordered those bits of kit early. And the grid connection costs, they're never fixed in stone. So the grid connection agreement included it set out what the grid costs would be, but they're not set in stone. So they could change a little bit, but we're not expecting them to change dramatically because they have been set out already. And then we've had another question from Tim on Facebook. So he has asked, what makes this Britain's first shared solar park? And essentially, there are lots and lots of energy co-ops in the UK, so that's not kind of a new concept. What's new about Derril, and what makes this the UK's first ever shared solar park is that, as well as the ownership being shared, the electricity that it generates is also shared amongst the owners. So most energy co-ops in the UK are, they're called community benefit societies, and they are, there isn't a trading relationship between the members. It's more kind of, you kind of get a dividend. Whereas with Ripple, it's a genuine bona fide cooperative, because there is that genuine trading relationship between the thousands of members of the co-op and the co-op itself. So because you are getting savings off your electricity bill directly in relation to how much your co-op is effectively selling the electricity for. So yeah, it's a genuine co-op, and this is what makes it the UK's first ever shared solar park, because all the co-op members are getting the electricity, whereas typical or other energy co-ops, they're much more of a financial opportunity. They sort of just give you dividends. So this is the first time ever that a solar park has been done under Ripple's shared ownership model. We've got 2 wind farms that are already have already been funded under that model. So we've got one that's operational. That is Great Valley. That's a single turbine down in South Wales, and that's been operating for around 15 months now. And then we've got Kirkhill Wind Farm, which is up in Scotland. That's under construction at the moment, and that's due to come online either late this year or early next year. So yeah, we've done 2 shared wind farms. This is the UK's first ever shared solar park, which we are really, really excited about. And then another question, this is from James on Ripple's community. So he asks, based on the name, it's called Derril Water, is there any flood risk associated with the proposed site? Well, so as part of the planning application, there was a full flood risk assessment that was undertaken, and you can find that on, if you just Google Derril Water planning application, and if you scroll down to the flood risk assessment, you'll be able to see all the details there. But yeah, that determined that actually it was fine, and the flood risk was very, very manageable. And then we've got another question from Funky Alchemist on Instagram, and they ask, will there be more onshore wind farm projects to marry up with the solar? So as I said, we've already done 2 wind farms. This is the first shared solar that we've offered. We expect there to be wind farms later on. We can't say exactly when they will be coming forward, but we do hope to do Ripple's model and launch more wind farms later. We don't know whether that's going to be this year or next year, but yes, that is our intention, is to offer a combination of wind and solar projects going forward under the same model, essentially. Okay, the next question is from Gary, and he's asked the question via YouTube. His question is, I was on the Octopus Tesla Energy Plan, and I wasn't allowed to apply for Ripple shares. I'm now on Octoflux. Am I eligible to join Ripple? So yes, when we launched our first wind farm, the Tesla tariff was the only tariff that it wasn't suitable, the only one of the Octopus tariffs, I should say, that it wasn't compatible with. Now he's on Octopus Flux. All Octopus tariffs are now compatible with Ripple. So yes, if you're on Flux, if you're on Agile, if you're on Octopus Intelligent, or a 24-month fix or 12-month fix, whichever tariff you're on, you can just get your savings applied. You don't need to switch tariff. Whatever your bill is, you just get your saving applied to your account every month. And then we've had a question from Colin Jewell and David Jones. This is via YouTube. They asked, will Derril Water be connected on time? Billions of pounds worth of green energy projects are on hold because they cannot plug into the UK's electricity system. Now, yeah, it's not an issue for Derril because we've got that grid connection agreement in place, which, as I said, is expected, or has a grid connection date of summer next year. There's been a lot of news stories about loads and loads of solar parks having very, very long connection dates. So they might not be able to connect until 2030, 2035. Those are primarily from projects which have joined the queue later. So basically, all projects, they have to apply for grid connection, and they basically form a big queue. So the ones that have applied most recently, which is a lot of solar parks, they are at the back of the queue, and so they are the ones that will get connected last, because all the ones further up the queue have obviously got their spaces further in advance of those ones. So yeah, so there is a big issue with grid connections, but that issue does not affect Derril Water, because it's already got its grid connection secured, and the application was made a number of years ago, and as I said, it's already been entered into. Now we've got a question from Mike on YouTube. So he has asked, I see wind producers are much faster payback than solar. Would you still agree with this assessment? So when we launched Greyfather, we were expecting the payback for Greyfather to be around 14 years. We launched it in June 2020. So this was mid-COVID lockdown. Electricity prices were through the floor. We were expecting quite a long payback period. Obviously, since then, which we didn't know at the time, electricity prices have risen extremely high, and that is what makes the payback period, or is likely to make the payback period for Greyfather so short. We do not expect the payback period, even for Kirkhill, to be 5 years. If prices did skyrocket again, like they have done over the last 18 months, that would bring the payback period right in. But we really hope for the nation's sake that doesn't happen. So the payback period is a factor of the electricity price. It's largely driven by the electricity price. So high electricity prices lead to shorter payback periods because the saving that members get for each kilowatt hour that their bit of the solar park generates is so much higher. In low price periods, the saving per kilowatt hour would be lower as well, and that would lead to a longer payback period. So it's not the case that solar parks are sort of have an inherently longer payback period. It's just that Greyfather's payback period is going to be incredibly short because of the really high prices that we've gone through over the last year and a half. Obviously, Derril connecting or coming online in late summer next year. We hope that prices will have come down by then, and so they won't be at the really crazy high levels. Sorry, and I've got a bit of a cold, so let me just keep going my nose. Right, so next question is from Elise on YouTube, and they say, what guarantees or technologies will be in place to ensure that the grid takes all of the solar production from the site, given that it is often produced outside peak energy hours? So the grid connection ensures that all the output is taken. So yeah, it's not the case that the capacity wouldn't be taken necessarily. The grid connection ensures that all of it will be there, but also the way that solar generates, it is generally in relatively high demand periods. Obviously, the lowest demand period is overnight. Solar's not generating overnight in those low demand hours. And then we've got a question from Gary Smith on YouTube. This is a really common question that we get a lot. He says, what happens to my shares if I don't live for the next 40 years? So the shares in the co-op are withdrawable, but they're not transferable. So that means you can't sell them to somebody else. However, the only situation in which you can sell transfer your shares is in the event of the member's death. So if you do happen to die before the end of the solar park's operating life, your shares can then just be transferred to anyone else. So on your Ripple dashboard, there is a section where you can nominate up to 4 people, so that in the event of your death, your shares can be split between those 4 people. So it's not like you don't kind of lose them, you just get to pass them on to whoever you nominate in the event of your death. So yeah, it's a very good legacy, and we've had to do it. It's very simple for us to do. We've had to do it a couple of times already, and the families have always been really pleased that their members have been quite excited about the project, and so they are then really happy to be able to take on that legacy on their behalf. And then there's a question from Dave Faulkner. This is via YouTube. He says, I already have solar, so my bills in the summer are very low in any case. Do I still benefit from savings in the summer? Also, do I benefit from the 2 pence per kilowatt hour price in the winter? So there's a couple of things here. So it doesn't matter if you've already got solar and your consumption is lower in the summer. Obviously, your shares in your solar park will be generating most of the savings during the summer. However, even if you went on holiday for a whole month or 3 months over the summer, you don't lose your savings. They would just sit on your account, and then you could then reduce them down over the winter. So even if you're not using electricity, or you've got your own solar that nets off your consumption, that doesn't matter. You do not lose any of your savings. They just sit on your account ready to be used up over the course of the winter. But the other question as well he has is, do I benefit from the 2 pence per kilowatt hour price in winter? So I'm not sure if there's a confusion here about the 2 pence per kilowatt hour price. So the 2 pence per kilowatt hour is what Octopus or your supplier would buy the electricity from the solar park for, instead of buying at the market price. That's not the retail price. So on top of that, you have to add in all the grid charges, all the taxes and the levies and supply costs that make up any other tariff. But it's just the electricity part of your electricity bill would then, assuming that your solar park generates as much electricity as you consume, the electricity part of your electricity bill would then become that 2 pence per kilowatt hour. But like I said, you need to add on all the other elements to that as well. But yes, that 2 pence per kilowatt hour is it's fixed for on a yearly basis, and then it's very stable throughout the solar park's lifetime. And then we've got a question from Torkel Lynchen on YouTube. And he's asked, if you buy shares, do they move with you if you move house or move energy provider? So Ripple is really, really flexible and it's portable. So if you move home, unlike with solar panels on your roof, your ownership stays with you. It's yours. It's not attached to your house. So yes, if you move home, provided that you stay within England, Wales or Scotland, then you can still get your savings in your new home. However, if you move energy provider, you have to be supplied by one of Ripple's supply partners. So as I said, that is your Co-op Energy and E.ON, but also if you're already with Octopus, it also works if you are already with Octopus. So so there is, it's portable by location, by your home, but you do need to stay within our pool of kind of approved suppliers in order to get the savings applied to your bill. We are expecting to increase the number of suppliers in our supply pool over time. So at the moment, there's a like I said, your Co-op Energy, also with Octopus and E.ON, we are expecting to expand that out over time, but we can't guarantee at this point how many or certainly which ones they would be. And then we've got a question from Andy on YouTube. So he asks, there are currently 2 supply partners and a potential third. What happens if all withdraw from the scheme or a purchase price for energy generated can't be agreed? So if for whatever reason, all of the energy suppliers decided to leave the Ripple scheme, then the co-op still owns the solar park. So the co-op will just need to find an alternative way to get your value to all the members, basically. Obviously, it can come through your electricity bill. We don't think it's likely at all that all the suppliers would exit the scheme. But if in the extreme scenario that did happen, the co-op would still, they would just have to find a new way to get the value to all of its members. And then also, what happens if a purchase price for energy generated can't be agreed? Well, in the agreements, the power purchase agreements that the solar park will have with all of the supply partners, there's clauses in there, as there are with any other power purchase agreement, as to what to do if a price can't be agreed. And it basically falls to a market index, and then it's a percentage of that market index price. So, and that's a very, very standard way of covering off that risk in a power purchase agreement. And then we've had a question from Aris on YouTube. So are there any plans to get more electricity suppliers on board, especially smaller suppliers like Good Energy? So yes, absolutely. As I said, yes, we are planning on bringing more suppliers into our pool of suppliers. We can't say exactly which ones at the moment, but yes, we are hoping to expand out in numbers in the not too distant future. And then Sally on the Ripple community says, please can you advise what percentage of the required project proceeds have been raised today and how any debt financing that might be used will impact the business plan for the economics for investors? So at the moment we are just under 50%. I can't remember the exact number, sort of 47, 48%. And so we are in discussions with financiers to fill the gap. There's also a potential co-investor that could come in. So once we've got the heads of terms from the financiers, we'll then be able to look at what impact it would be. But in general, certainly with Kirkhill, it kind of improved the situation for the owners. So yeah, and we'll share that with the co-op board directors as well. Now we've got Shub Daniels on YouTube. He asks, what happens if you use less energy than your share? Do you get a credit to your account? So yes, absolutely. You always get a credit to your account, regardless of whether or not you've used that much electricity or not. So like I said, even if you go away 3 months in the summer, don't use any electricity over that period, you still get all of the savings on your electricity bill. And what happens if you use less? So, but also because we cap the amount of ownership at 120% of what you use. Yeah, you can, if you're at 120%, you would expect that you'll be using less than your consumption. You don't lose that, the surplus. It just goes as a further credit on your electricity bill. And then Femi on YouTube asks, are they able to pay in installments? So absolutely yes. So you can pay when you buy your shares. You can just choose to either pay in a single instalment or to pay over 9 monthly instalments, and that's just an option when you proceed through the customer journey. And we've got another question here from Mariana on YouTube. So how does the payback period compare with having your own solar panel on the roof of my property? So now, whereas with Ripple, we can sort of see it's quite a simple structure. We know, or we don't know, we can forecast what the electricity price may be and then what the payback period would be. With home solar, the payback period and the value of your solar is really dependent on so many specific things. So things like, whether you use electricity during the day when your solar panels are operating, so that you can kind of offset that against the electricity that you bring in from the grid, whether you've got a home battery, whether you've got an EV, so many different things. So it's a lot more difficult to say, my payback period for home solar is X or Y, whereas obviously we can do that a lot more easily, or at least within a sort of certain range, as we've set out in the Shareholder document. With solar, there are just so many variables that are specific to each individual household, and it's very, very difficult to do that. There is there's an assessment or an evaluation that could be done on the Energy Saving Trust's website, and that can then, you can put into there, whether you are out during the day, whether you're in during the day, whether you've got a battery, all that kind of thing, and then that will estimate what the payback might be for you. But yeah, it's very, I know people want to do it, like compare home solar to rooftop solar, but it's very, very difficult because it depends on so many different specifics about your home setup. And then Becky Jane on YouTube has asked, there's no information about Ripple on Eon Next site. When will we find out more from them about how it works with them? So yeah, there's very little information on other suppliers' websites either. So if you've got any specific questions, then please just drop us an email at help@rippleenergy.com, and then we can sort of talk you through the process from here. I think that's probably the easiest way of doing it. And then it says, this is again a question from Chop Daniels on YouTube. So if I use the calculator and buy the number of shares equivalent to my yearly use, my electricity is covered, give or take some costs for 40 years. So no, you don't get free electricity, because your electricity bill is made up of a number of different elements. Only one of those is the actual cost of the electricity. So you've got the cost of the electricity, you've also got the grid charges, you've got taxes and levies, and you've got the supply cost as well. So all of those you still have to pay, because we're using the grid to get the electricity to your home. So your electricity isn't free. We estimate, however, that you could reduce your electricity bill would reduce by around £25 percent per year. Obviously, when the electricity price is very high and the electricity element of your bill is a lot higher, the savings will be higher. The prices come down, the savings will be lower. But yes, you do not get free electricity, because there are all these other elements of your bill, and also the electricity element isn't free because it still has to cover the solar farm park, still has to cover all of its operating costs. So that's what the 2 pence covers, is the solar park's operating costs, which includes things like the land rent, the business rates, there's Ripple's management fee in there, insurance, all things like that. So that's what makes up that 2p. And then we've got a question from Gary on YouTube asking, can my son buy shares even though he won't buy a house until next summer? So yes, he can. The risk that he isn't in a position to get savings applied to his bill would be his. But yeah, absolutely he can do that. If you have any problems, just email help@rippleenergy.com and we can help you out with that. And then Steve on YouTube said, you said there would be add-ons on top of the 2p per kilowatt hour. Is it possible to say how much these add-ons will amount to? So it's like I said, so it's very difficult to say. It used to be very straightforward when the electricity price is very stable. So you've got, we can't say the additional add-on costs, your taxes and your levies will be X or Y amount, because it depends on so many things, like what tariff you're on and things like that. So no, I think what the important thing to recognise is it's kind of a cost down rather than a bottom up cost. So it's more about the saving that you get on your bill rather than the cost up on your tariff, kind of thing, if that makes sense. So your tariff is whatever your tariff is, and then your Ripple savings are applied to your bill. So I just get on my electricity bill, electricity, gas, Ripple saving £52 or whatever it was this month. So yeah, you can be on whichever tariff, and that sets your bill. Your Ripple savings are then determined by the generation from your bit of the solar park multiplied by that year's saving rate, and that saving is then just applied to your bill. So yeah, it's not quite as simple as you've got your wholesale cost and then you've got X amount for grid, X amount for supply costs, and X amount for levies. It's kind of all merged into one, but that's not sort of us doing that. That's how tariffs are set. And then we've got a question from Owen on YouTube. He asks, what happens if you accidentally buy more than 120% total because you assumed more electricity consumption than you actually use in a year? So if for whatever reason you did accidentally buy more, you can just get in touch with us. But yeah, if your consumption goes down, we do not make you sell shares. If your consumption goes up, we can increase your 120% cap, so you could then buy more shares in future. But if you move into a smaller house or whatever, your consumption goes down, we don't sort of expect you to sell shares to reduce that amount. And then so Chris on YouTube has asked, are the estimated saving rates deliberately erring on the conservative side, or are they quite realistic? So I mean, we don't like to over egg things, so it's very difficult to sort of categorically say yes or no to that question. I mean, we've looked at what we base the savings on are the government's electricity price forecasts, and then the difference between those price forecasts and the operating costs of the solar park. We also take into account other industry forecasts that we're aware of, and certainly what we have used, the scenario that we've used, are kind of well within the parameters of other forecasts that are available in the market. So I think that is probably, I think that looks like the last of the questions that have come in. So thank you so much for joining this session. So if you've got any other questions, do please either just jump on our website chat, and there's people in our customer service team, we'll be more than happy to help you there. Or if it's when the web chat has closed, do just drop us a line at help@rippleenergy.com, and then we can answer any questions that you've got via email. But yeah, the share offer closes on Monday, 5 p.m, Monday the 22nd of May. So do please, just make sure you buy your shares if you want to before then. But once again, please do read the full share offer document in full. Things like this are great for being able to answer your questions direct, but the share offer document really sets out everything that you need to know about the share offer. So really we do recommend that you read everything in full. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'm going to sign off now. But yeah, any questions, please do just either go on our website on the web chat, or just email help@rippleenergy.com. And we're really looking forward to get Derril Water Solar Park under construction and getting savings generated for everyone next year, and the thousands of tons of CO2 that it's going to save every year for its 40-year lifetime. So thank you and good night.